Find people who like vampire series unintelligent, he insulted me casually. At the ripe age of 64, John Bartholomew Gutierrez III was of Latin American royalty, and he looked not a day past 33. I like to think it was because when you have no personality, or at least the personality of a doorknob, problems don't really open to you, do they? I was with my friend Valeria, who had brought her cousin Sasha, a gorgeous young woman with a personality that radiated banality and ease, perfect for John Bartholomew's gaze. She barely cracked 23 and laughed and nodded at everything he said, which he thought made her fascinated with him, and not that we were sitting by the loudest speaker known to man blasting 1970s house mixes of Fleetwood Mac. You gotta go to the Bergman films for themes on life and death. The 1930s era was a marvel, he continued as I watched, because there is nothing like trying to make everyone feel dumb for not knowing pre-World War II films to make yourself look attractive. It was the machista way of flirting. Make a woman feel so stupid and you so smart that she must lay in your bed to taste your brain. Yet the key word of that sentence was taste. All my life I landed in wealthier circles, despite being born and raised in the opposite, poverty. I did not share their tastes as much as I simply was myself, and in this world you will be very surprised how far authenticity gets you, just on the curiosity others might have over why you have you. I like what we do in the shadows, she replied, with a TV series straight from my heart. So funny, I laughed. You probably have not heard of that series, John. It's stupid and closer to the 2030s and era, I proudly jabbed. One thing I always detested about privilege in any form was how it moved via isolation, analyzing you and your value to the world or them by what you know and consume. But my troubled childhood made me see right through that dynamic as extremely boring. Genuine, beautiful connection was what I craved, before so desperately, but now with a more measured desire. I was too battered by years of heartbreak to fool myself into believing that humanity wanted humanity. Or at least not all human beings, right? Suddenly John became the isolated one, and though eager to get back into the elusive graces of Sasha, she really just wanted to laugh. He kept on mentioning more vampire films to interject, but the steam was gone, and the train had arrived to a new destination. Truth over taste. All right, let's heal. Let's discuss. So, first of all, sometimes I feel like you know somebody's wealthy because of how healthy they look. Like this man was 63, like 63, 64, and he looked 32, 33. He looked amazing. And he was gracious, but there was also something. One thing about wealthier circles is that they can, it's almost like, which makes sense when you think about politics, formalized hatred. They know how to be civil and cordial, even if they detest you. And very rarely do you get those moments of, like, oh God, get out of this place, you dirty girl. For the most part, they want to look kind of like Jesus entering a room, except Jesus has like a golden Rolex and a nice little suit from Cartier, like it's like I want to look like the most luxurious version of Jesus. And Jesus would never turn you away, but might call security on you secretly. And I think his obsession with Sasha was obviously like, she's what, 23, 25. She was gorgeous. And she kind of just nodded at everything he said, at the end of the day, we're at a party in his home. I'm not going to tell this guy he's the most boring person on earth, or that I noticed that he called me stupid in many ways because I said I like vampire series, particularly Interview with a Vampire. And he went off about Bergman films and Nosferatu, the original, and all that. And I felt like one thing about taste is the whole point is if you don't know what the most esoteric, like from the grave, from the catacombs of France, if you don't know the frogwa from the catacombs of France, like it's just so specific to isolate you, to kind of measure whether you can hang. But the problem is, and this happens a lot, do you have personality? You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad you know 1930s Bergman films. That's fantastic. But you are about as funny as an ingrown nail. And that's one of the things about the wealthy elite that I always, when I hang out with higher echelons, which I don't know how I land into places, don't ask me. It's just my life. But I really think it is authenticity. I've never been one. My parents were always chasing images, always trying to look elegant and luxurious and classy. And I think it's a side effect of being raised in deep poverty. But for me, I was always seeking my own identity. Like, who is Haradin? What does she dress like? What does she think? What does she look like in this era of her life? What will she look like in the next era? I always saw taste and style as more building your personality or reflecting your personality more so than your wealth. Like, I see it as personal value rather than economic value. And I think that's why sometimes I land, well, a lot of times I land with like wealthier circles because I don't exactly look poor or rich. I really do look like me. And I think there's something very curious. And I don't, we always hear that. Like, if you are genuine, you will go farther. But then at the same time, we're like, okay, sure. Yeah, okay, good luck with that. Because we live in a world that discourages genuineness, discourages intuition, discourages individuality. But yet, when you go to wealthier circles, they are individuals. They're not exactly the happiest or the most charming, but they do have a sense of self. It just relies on economic value. So I think it's one of those things where the fact that I'm always me, an individual, attracts wealthy and wealth because they are. They're not the most communal. They're not the most family oriented, loyal friendship. They want to be, but that kind of idea of taste, the same thing that makes them feel important is also the same thing that makes them feel inhuman, which is, do you know this specific island where I vacation and it's this very, very private lago, you know? And I'm very blessed that I have always been desperately seeking my own identity. I think it was my nature, and it's also like an opposite response to my nurture. I just didn't grow up with parents and families that kind of encouraged me to be individualistic, to shine on my own. I had to make everybody shine. I had to be humble. And it's funny because there were two elements. This was a wealthy guy trying to flirt, not only via taste, but also, if you don't know the most specific film from the most specific era, you're stupid. But because you're hot, I'm going to let it slide, come into my bed. You know, like, it wasn't just that he was wealthy, it's also that he was a guy and he was weaponizing this kind of idea that when you make people feel stupid or kind of unknown to the world and to culture and to history, they might like you. They might find you to be the reincarnation of the Dos Equis man, and suddenly you're the most interesting man on earth. We must talk to you. And he was so blasé. Like, he was just so... It's so weird. And I think it's something very narcissistic, or something that I noticed in my father. My father had the ability to be dead inside, but also look and act like a warm person would. So it's this emptiness that I pick up, in part because I was raised by a narcissist, where I know you don't feel that way. I know you don't feel warm towards her, but I know you feel heated by her. Like, it's like, I know you don't think she's interesting. I know you don't want to, but you want her to think you are. I know you don't think that she is of great value, but you do want her to be of great value to your bedroom tonight. And the strategy of making somebody feel less than so that for one night they could be your more is not just wealth, it's machismo. And I just, God, and he kind of like immediately lost her. Like at first she was nodding, but there was a lot of loud music. And then she was like, yeah, I said I liked Interview with a Vampire. She said, I love what we do in the shadows. And boom, he was gone. And it was this moment of kind of like, I kind of felt like for a moment, I'm like, yeah, you are 63, because it wasn't about, he made it about, that archaic taste, and are you from here, are you from here? And sometimes wealthy people, when we really think of wealthy people, how many young wealthy people do we see or do we know of? At best, they're riding the coattails of their like 95-year-old father who, Succession was based off of. So it was this moment of like, you are old, because at the end of the day, what won was a funny TV series that she watched and I did. And we laughed about Nandor and Guillermo. And I think what he missed is sometimes personality goes beyond taste. It's almost nerdier than taste. Genuine personality and joy is a very spiritual value that the wealthy try to put economic value to, only to land empty. He didn't get the girl, but he also didn't get liked. And everybody was in his home, and I found him at moments alone, maybe smoking a cig casually with somebody, but for having a packed house with people drinking his wine and drinking his food, there was this weird disconnect that I have found a lot of times, and hanging out with wealthy is very, very natural. And I've always had friendships with wealthier people, but they were difficult to maintain because it's almost like, why do you like me? Like, so you genuinely like me? Are you trying to use me? But it's not just, are you trying to use me to get to my stuff? It's that my identity is my stuff. My identity is that Bergman film. My identity is this beautiful, lavish home. My identity is this overpriced wine. My stuff is my identity. And I have always, thank God for Scorpio stelliums, very naturally gone straight for the spirit of people. And that's a good, beautiful thing. It has helped me a lot. But then there's these tricky moments of like, when you accidentally wake up somebody to the fact that they are a spirit. And that's why I said, I ended with, we had arrived to a new destination, truth over taste. The truth is your soul. The truth is personality wins. And personality wins, but it's also, wealth can never be ignored. People are watching to see if you are rich or poor. Even another poor person is trying to see how rich you are. Wealth cannot be ignored, but it will never spark quite like genuine, good, cool personality. So check out datarecovery.com. Check out theandrewreviews.all.com. I'm thinking of transferring the articles there. Check out Hardin on all music platforms. New music coming out every 2 weeks. Follow me on TikTok.